like to call the February 13th, 2023 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Okay, the approval of the agenda is first. Are there any comments or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
okay, moved and seconded is approval.
Aye.
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 Okay, the fourth item is a public forum.
Third item.
Minutes.
Third, oh, okay, missed four last time, didn't I? Okay, approval of the January 9th minutes. It was a good job on the minutes again. Are there any comments or changes, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I had one change. Page 8, very last paragraph, second sentence. Says the commission will do a solicitation for sponsors, and it should say the chamber will do a solicitation for sponsors.
Anything else?
That's all I had.
Okay. Is there a motion if there aren't any other changes?
With that change, I'll move to approve as changed.
Okay, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and approved. All those are in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Now we're at the public forum. This is a time for public comments on topics that concern the Historic Preservation Commission, other than those that are on this agenda. If you want to make comments on any of the items on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity to do that later. The limit for the speaking is 5 minutes, and the commission cannot take any action or comment on the or act on comments at this meeting because requirements of the Open Meetings Act. But they may do so at a future meeting. Is there any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to take a moment of your time. I've met most of you and worked with most of you actually in the past, but it's nice to meet you all here in this forum as well. By way of introduction, I would just say that my name is Michael Belding. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of History at Iowa State University, and indeed I am the candidate in history who was involved with the intensive historic survey of the Chautauqua Park and Ridgewood subdivisions, whose involvement and employment was prematurely ended at the end of last September. Now, I'm not here, I will observe, I'm not here to press any human resources related grievance or to seek your help in obtaining any satisfaction in that area. Instead, I'm here to offer you my knowledge and perspective on historic preservation in Ames and to issue something of a call to action as a long-term and also generational resident of the community. I admit that much of that knowledge and perspective is based on the project from which I was dismissed, during which I became intimately acquainted with preservation in Ames. But during my involvement almost immediately after I began working on the project, I began formulating the critique that I shared with you and others after last month's meeting, and which I had previously shared with certain city officials closer to the time of my dismissal. Now, it is true that I did not share this critique with city officials or staff until after my dismissal. However, as the date on the September letter, which was addressed to you and sent to others, would indicate, as well as the dates and times of my comments on preservation in Ames to family and friends would indicate as well, I developed these independently of any human resources action that I experienced. I would agree with Commissioner Winders statement last month that some of the city's human resources and other policies made working on the project difficult. But I would also say that the planning department's staff who were involved in the project, their lack of subject matter knowledge and experience made things worse. And their lack of subject matter knowledge and experience, I think, make preservation in Ames worse also. I don't want to go on at much length here since that's not what open forums are for. And in any case, you have a much longer version of my critique already in writing. But I did want to convey, since my work and involvement have been discussed kind of in a roundabout way, for reasons that make sense. Despite that, though, I wanted to come forward to convey my availability to discuss with any of you at any time in a meeting, in open session or closed session or individually, the critique that I wrote and shared with you. And finally, my call to action is that in the absence of staff knowledge, I believe it's your role as commissioners to ensure your own education and initiative and activity in improving preservation in Ames, such as by writing grant proposals, which has been done for surveys and nominations, such as by drafting revised ordinances, which is being done, I think, as well as by seeking specific training, advocating for the appointment of knowledgeable and experienced commissioners, and insisting on the involvement of qualified staff in preservation matters. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, we'll go to item 5. We're discussing revisions to Chapter 31 of the Ames City Code or Municipal Code. Let's see, I sent a memo and staff included 2 documents from the National Trust for Historic Preservation for information on new construction. I also brought an additional handout from the National Park Service that specifically addresses new additions to historic buildings, which that is more specifically what we're probably going to be looking at, since we have just the one district and then the 2, well, probably 2 landmarks that maybe would have additions to them. The lengthiest document was for constructing a new building in a historic district, but a lot of the information there is useful for additions on a building in a historic district. So I think my main concern, I explained in the memo, I think that there's a conflict in what the city code says, and in that it advocates for replication of historic styles, which is really against what the standards say. And the conflict is that the municipal code also specifies the standards as our guidelines for reviewing projects. So I think it's a discrepancy that could cause a lot of trouble if we were, if that issue were to come up. I think it's not likely it's going to happen very often, but I think in the whole certificate of appropriateness procedure, I think that probably is the main substantive change that we need to look at. The changes we've looked at have been more procedural and giving more clarification to the procedure and to the applicants. So, and staff, any comments? Do you want to start with any comments on? I think the commission would be interested in knowing when that was included in the code, how old it is, when it was done, and and who was involved in it, if any staff now was involved in it when it was written.
The section on the design criteria
The,
for the different architectural styles.
well, no,
Oh, the Secretary of the Interior
I
Standards.
mean, putting the procedures for certificate of appropriateness and including the standards in that, if that was when they were in the original ordinance, or if it was, done
To be honest
later.
with you, I'd have to look back and see just when those things were added.
okay,
I don't, the procedures for certificate of appropriateness probably were in there from the beginning. The Secretary of the Interior Standards may not have been.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking, things have changed over time in historic preservation, and
Mhm.
I know that in the 70s when the programs were set up in cities, I think there really there was little understanding of the standards, and I think people thought that replicating historic styles was the thing to do, and I think people still think that. But I think that's changed a lot, and I think it's a kind of a crucial issue for the commission to address in this project, to propose revisions. So the design criteria, though, was added when the district was.
I
Is that-
believe the design criteria were added when the district was created, the Old Town District.
And that was what year?
That was 1989.
Okay. Okay, so quite a while ago. Okay. Yeah, that's quite a while ago.
Yeah, that's when Old Town was created. Yeah.
Yeah, 30 years. So anyway, okay. So any discussion or comments or
So why would we want to not, how do I put this? Why would we want to open it up to other designs?
other what?
Why would we want to get rid of this? I mean, if the whole point of having Old Town was to try to preserve the look of Old Town, and why would we want to remove the requirement that anything new that's built in there does not follow like these certain, why would we want to remove that?
Well, if you read through the standards, there are 3 of the 10 standards that apply. It says each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. That doesn't necessarily apply to a new building, but for a district, it's an element that alters or gives a false sense of history. Because if you are not trained in a trained architectural historian is going to be probably recognize even a new building just by being familiar with materials and everything. But the point is that part of historic preservation objectives of it is education. And for the general public, it tricks them into thinking that, something is
I see your
new
point.
as
You don't want to recreate Main Street USA like at Disney World.
Right. Well, there is a standard for reconstruction,
Mhm.
but that is for places like Williamsburg and where you're trying to create a place where there's a living museum. You can move historic buildings in and maybe construct buildings that are. So that's one reason I included that one document. The Secretary of Interior's standards explained, because the 4 methods of preservation are really what you have to determine if you're doing a project anyway. And so the reconstruction would not be appropriate in a historic district in Ames. probably the only, well, preservation would apply, and then rehabilitation. But yeah, maybe some restoration, but the most likely are preservation and rehabilitation. So,
I could see the intent when it was originally written that I think the reason why they established Old Town is because so many of the old houses were being torn down and they were building apartment buildings. So I think that that was like the intent there. The only house that I can think of that's recently been built, it was not even the Old Town district, but just maybe a block off of it. Did a really nice job of looking like a slightly larger version of vernacular Victorian.
mhm,
So I think the people who would build in there would be sensitive to
Right.
the idea, but we take that out, what's not to stop somebody from buying an empty lot and building a whatever they call the architecture today.
well, because we have design review and we wouldn't, if it was something that was
okay.
glaring.
Okay.
Because I know some cities I've worked in where there's a lot of development, they've had people with a lot of money come in and they will build out to the maximum in a little, in a district of small buildings and put big Greek columns on the front. And it's pretty awful. I don't think that'll happen here, but you never know.
You never know.
So, and then, something related to that too, it would be really expensive to build like an Italianate house here. So it's not likely that that anyone would try to replicate something
Mhm.
exactly, but it's still legally, I think we need to just look at what makes our ordinance more legal and defensible.
Yes, and good to remind me that even if we took this off, that there is still, what do I want to say? That we still have some say in what would go in. Even if you take it out, it doesn't mean it's no holds barred.
Yeah. It's really hard to determine a compatible design that's modern, but it can be done. I have seen it, and you probably have too. And it can be, really, really complimentary. But well, look at the Louvre in Paris with the triangular glass structure and the
What, that doesn't look original?
yeah, but it doesn't detract and it didn't destroy any of the original buildings. So, any more discussion about the direction or what to do or
I have a question about your concern. Is your concern building an entirely new building versus adding on to an existing building? Or are you concerned about both, or just the adding on to a building? The way I'm reading what you provided, I tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you're concerned about if you build an entirely new structure.
well, no, I'm concerned about both.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the addition to a historic building is more likely what we would
Yeah.
come up against anyway, because there aren't very many vacant, or if there are any vacant properties in Old Town, I don't know.
Well, the design criteria, they're just some basic things in each style of architectural design that are in the ordinance. It's building height, it's roof type, it's roof pitch, whether it has dormers or not, what kind of entry, siding, type and dimensions, window type, is it double hung windows? And, kind of some basic, shape for something to be consistent with that style. And then the plan and footprint. So, I mean, they're pretty basic elements you'd look at. So I guess I don't see them as being onerous to, someone building a new house. We've only had one new house built in the Old Town District. A structure was destroyed by fire, and then Habitat for Humanity built a house there. And it's a duplex, actually. And they chose one of the 9 architectural styles, and then, designed it with, a roof type for that style, a building height, the type of windows, the type of siding, the basic footprint, so it wasn't anything that, involved a lot of architectural detail specification beyond what the design guidelines show. The design criteria, just kind of getting those basic elements in place. So I guess I don't see it as conflicting with the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Yeah, and I don't think the design criteria is a conflict. I mean, I think that the only thing is defining the style and what's typical of that style. To me, it just directs the applicant and the commission and staff to just look at it as that's what it has to be. And I mean, I think the design criteria is good because it definitely educates people to what's the style, characteristics of the style. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think the wording that is, and I don't think it needs to be changed that much. I just think there's a little tweaking
Okay.
so that it doesn't.
So you'd leave the design criteria in there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. At first I thought, this is, but I think I said way back that it's too prescriptive. But I was thinking that because those characteristics were under each style, that it directed it too much to being more asking for replication. So that's what caught my eye at first. And then when I looked at the wording that directs the procedure, I thought that that's where the problem was. But the design criteria, I don't think I don't think that's an issue.
Oh, okay.
So do you all kind of see what I'm saying with?
So what would be the change then? The net change to the ordinance?
Well,
To keep those both?
just in, well, you wouldn't say that it shall be representative of one of the architectural styles. You probably would just say that a new principal structure and probably addition to a contributing building.
And the line about features.
And then the line about features, yeah, that it shall meet instead of saying it meets the design criteria, it should say something like that the design for the new structure or new addition should be compatible with the character of the district, and maybe you could reference the design criteria that that defines it. But I think that too, that there maybe needs to be more about looking at what's within the vicinity too, because the styles really vary in And, you know, something that's compatible with an Italianate building may not be compatible with where there's more arts and crafts buildings. So I just think it needs to be more, um, the emphasis should be on compatibility rather than following the design criteria. And I can write something up for the next meeting too, to kind of, I thought about doing that and then I thought I'd get the discussion first, so.
I read this as more having to do with brand new construction, and I think I understood it as you want to prevent having, I don't want to use the word artificial, but unnecessary, fake, old-looking stuff, like you said, the Disney World thing. Or I'm thinking of a couple cities down south that look. Helen, Georgia comes to mind, where it's forced to be German. But otherwise, the way it reads is like an HOA. You're just forcing the look, the aesthetics, rather than
Mhm.
respecting the historic properties as such.
Right, yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's my concern, and you know, and there's really two approaches for designing something that's compatible, and that's picking up on features in the historic building, or you can look at just the major volume and then do like I don't know. You know, design. I mean, I can think of some commercial examples more than residential where, you know, you have the same setback, the roof lines, or there's some horizontality that picks up the feel of the rest of the district. And yet it's a strictly modern building. So it can be done. It's harder. It takes more. Well, it takes more understanding of design too, which is hard because not everybody's trained in design. So, but it wouldn't. I think rewording it would not close out the possibility of somebody coming in with, say, plans that they had ordered that were like a little colonial revival cottage. It probably would be pretty, you know, could be very acceptable. So.
I think
Okay.
as we have this discussion, we should keep in mind we're not only talking about Old Town, but any future district that would fall under
Exactly.
Section 31 also.
Exactly. We okay with that discussion then? Do you want me to write up something that would maybe, I'll get it done ahead of time, Ray, so staff can look at it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, item 6, the Historic Preservation Award nominations. Is there a staff comment?
Yeah, we only have one nomination, and we thought we'd so far. And so it's still open though to receive nominations till like the 24th. And
Mhm.
so at the next meeting, we'll bring those to you and you can decide whether you want to move forward with awards for those. Hopefully we'll have more, but so far just the one. So it's just
Okay.
kind of an update on what we have.
Okay, well, I have 2.
Oh, you do?
I have contacted a couple of people. One thing have there been awards for individuals for their contributions to,
There have been.
do you have a list of those people?
I believe, okay, Sharon Worth and
Okay.
I think Sharon Worth is the only one
Okay,
we
yeah,
have so
she,
far.
and I was thinking about her, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, I had talked to Alex at the museum, Historic Museum, about the getting someone that maybe had contributed a lot to their getting the Pantorium building.
Oh,
And
okay.
So I don't know if that's going to work out or not.
Okay.
And then the other one was for, I guess we can discuss it, can't we? Can I discuss what possible awards or at the meeting, or should I just pursue it and then just submit the application?
Maybe just pursue it and submit it.
Okay,
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
okay. Yeah, is anybody else come up with anything?
I'll be submitting one.
Great.
Just
I
needed
might
to wait
know-
for the snow to melt off a little bit for pictures.
Do what?
I just needed to wait for the snow to melt off for some pictures.
Oh, okay.
That's coming.
Okay.
Before we get more snow.
Oh, great. Ooh,
Let's hope we don't, but
maybe we'll have 4 awards. That's
oh,
exciting.
that'd be good.
Yeah. So the 24th is the deadline, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Is that it then? Nothing to vote on. The update on the participation in the Downtown Ames 515 week.
I had hoped to have an update, and I reached out to all my contacts and have not heard back. And I tried twice. So we can either assume that no news is good news, or no news is no news. So as soon as I have something from someone, whether I have to go track them down in person, I will have something either for sure by the next meeting. And if I get something before then, I'll just share it with everyone.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 8, commission comments.
I've got one quick one.
Okay,
So this was just on our work plan. One of the action items was to share information with Old Town through their newsletter. And I just wanted to let the commission know that in the February newsletter, the write-up about tax credit information got distributed. So
great.
done.
Good.
Great, cool.
Yep. And the plan is to continue doing some sort of information each newsletter, so as things get discussed and happenings come about, like the 515 thing.
Yeah, that's
It's a
great.
great piece
Yeah,
of information to
Nice,
share.
nice, good. Okay, anything else? Okay, staff comments?
I told you wrong on the date. The applications need to be submitted by 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 23rd,
February 23rd at what?
by 5 p.m.
Okay,
That's all I have.
okay, thank you. Okay, I guess we're ready to adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.